The person you can't stop thinking about is not the reason you can't stop. Read that again, because everything you've been told about this is backwards. It feels like they did something to you, like they crawled under your skin, moved in, and rewired you on their way out the door. They didn't. Something else is holding them there. Something older than them. Something that was already inside you long before they ever walked into your life. And it picked them. Out of everyone you've ever met, it locked onto this one person, and it will not let go until you understand why it chose them. That's the part no one tells you. This was never really about them at all. And somewhere underneath the obsession, you can already feel how little of this is up to you. You tell yourself to stop, and you get 40 seconds before they're back. You distract yourself. You bargain. You promise it ends tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, and they're still there, waiting behind your eyes. They surface in the middle of conversations with other people. They're the last thing in your mind before you sleep, and the first thing when you wake. This is not a choice you keep making. It is something being done to you, from the inside, and you don't even know by what. So, if you actually want it to stop, not for 40 seconds, but for good, you have to stop asking how to get this person out of your head, and start asking what they're doing in there in the first place. That question, what they're actually doing in there, is the thread, and we're going to follow it all the way down. Because Carl Jung spent his entire career studying exactly this, the way another human being can move into your inner world and refuse to leave. And what he found is almost the opposite of what you'd expect. Because the intensity you feel is not proof that this person is your destiny. It's not evidence that you're meant to be together, or that you'll never move on, or that no one else will ever measure up. What it's actually proof of is that something inside you has been switched on. Something old. Something that was there long before they ever arrived. And to understand what that something is, we have to start with the machinery underneath it. The part of you that's actually running the show while you sit there feeling helpless. Jung had a name for that machinery. He called it a complex. Now, forget whatever you think that word means. A complex, in Jung's sense, is simply a cluster of memories, emotions, and images buried in your unconscious, all wound tightly around a single emotional theme. The fear of being abandoned, the ache of never quite being chosen, the hunger to finally be seen by someone. Everyone has them. They're not a defect, they're just the scar tissue of having lived. If you have a history, you have complexes. The best way to picture one is a splinter buried under the skin. Most of the time you forget it's even there. You go about your life. No pain, no problem. The skin looks perfectly normal. But let anything brush against that exact spot. The wrong word, the wrong look, a certain kind of person, and the whole area flares up, far out of proportion to the touch. Someone barely grazes you, and you react like you've been stabbed. And to an outsider it looks like an overreaction, because they can't see the splinter. They only see the flinch. But the flinch was never really about their touch. It was about the thing that was already buried there, waiting to be pressed. That's the piece most people never grasp about themselves. They think their reactions are about the present moment. This person, this conversation, this rejection. But a huge amount of what you feel is the old splinter, not the new touch. Keep that distinction close, because it's about to explain everything. Here's why. Jung wrote a single line that turns this whole idea inside out. He said everyone knows that people have complexes. What almost no one understands is that complexes can have us. Read that again, slowly. Complexes can have us. It means these buried clusters aren't passive. They're not just sore spots that hurt when touched. Jung described them as almost autonomous, like small splinter personalities living inside you, each with its own energy and its own will that can rise up, take the wheel, and drive for a while whether you like it or not. He said an active complex puts you into a state of compulsion, where your ordinary willpower simply doesn't reach. It's no longer a splinter that just aches. It's a splinter that can stand up, walk around, and start making your decisions for you. And this is the exact moment where your sense of lost control, the thread from the very beginning, finally makes sense. You're not weak. You're not broken. A complex has been activated, and this specific person has become fused to it, and now it's driving. Which is why willpower fails you so completely, and why I want to give you the picture that explains that failure. Trying to force yourself to stop thinking about them is like being caught in a riptide and trying to swim straight back to shore. The current is simply stronger than you are. The harder you fight it head-on, the faster you burn through your strength, and the further out to sea it drags you. Almost everyone who drowns in a riptide drowns fighting it directly. Not because they were weak swimmers, but because they picked a fight with a force that was never going to lose a straight contest. So when just stop thinking about them doesn't work, understand what that actually means. It doesn't mean you lack discipline. It means you've been swimming the wrong direction against a current you were never going to overpower by force. Remember the riptide? We're going to come back to it, because the way out of one is the whole secret of this video. For now, just watch the current do its work. It's 2 a.m. You have nothing to gain from this. Nothing new has happened. No message, no news, no reason. And yet, there you are, running the same scene again. What they said, what you should have said, the exact look on their face when they said it. You're exhausted. You would give almost anything to shut it off and finally sleep. But the machine keeps running, dragging you further out because it was never about tonight, and it was never solvable by thinking harder. You're not trying to figure something out. You're caught in the current, and the current has a source. So the real question was never how do I stop thinking about them? That's the drowning swimmer's question. The question Jung would ask instead is quieter and far more useful. What did this person unlock? Because nobody takes over your entire inner world by being ordinary. They take it over by landing on something that was already loaded. And to see what they landed on, we have to look at what your mind is actually doing when it looks at them, because it turns out you're not really seeing them at all. Jung's word for this is projection, and it's the heart of the whole thing. So let me give you the clearest picture I can. Imagine an old film projector in a dark theater. You look up at the screen and there's a face, enormous, vivid, full of feeling. And it seems utterly real. It's right there on the wall in front of you. You could point to it. But the image isn't coming from the wall at all. It's coming from a small machine humming behind you, throwing light and film across the length of the room. The screen is just the flat, blank surface the picture happens to land on. Take away the projector, and the screen is only a white wall. That is what your mind does with the person you can't stop thinking about. You would swear you're seeing them, in high definition, more clearly and more completely than you've ever seen anyone in your life. But a great deal of what you're seeing is being thrown from your side of the room. There, the screen. The film is in you. And here's the crucial part. This doesn't mean they're worthless or that nothing about them is real. A screen has to be there for the movie to play. But the meaning, the charge, the almost unbearable significance you feel, that's coming from the projector. And the projector is yours. So the natural next question is, what exactly is on the film? What is being projected? And Jung's answer to that is where this gets almost eerily specific. He said the most powerful thing we project onto another person is an inner image we've each been carrying for our whole lives. In a man, he called it the anima, an inner feminine figure. In a woman, the animus, an inner masculine figure. But you don't need the technical terms to feel it. Think of it as a shape you've carried inside you since childhood. A silhouette, a cutout, an empty outline of the one, assembled slowly out of 1,000 fragments. A parent, a first crush, a face from a film, a line from a song, a longing you've never once said out loud. For most people, that outline stays empty for years. It just waits. And then one day someone walks into your life whose edges happen to match that outline closely enough. And it's like a key sliding into a lock that has been waiting your entire life to be turned. Everything clicks at once. Suddenly, this person seems luminous, faded, impossibly significant. They don't just seem attractive, they seem to mean something cosmic, something meant. That overwhelming sense of destiny you feel? That's the sound of the lock turning. It's the outline getting filled after all those years of standing empty. And hold this next part gently because it's the hardest one to accept. That light was never theirs. It's pouring out of you and landing on their face exactly the way you'd swear the glow was coming from the movie screen when it was really coming from the projector behind your head the whole time. And once you understand that it's the fit of the shape doing this and not the person's actual goodness, something painful in your own history finally makes sense, something you've probably blamed yourself for. Because the fit of a key in a lock has absolutely nothing to do with whether the room behind that door is a good place for you to stand. The key doesn't care if the room is warm or full of broken glass. It only cares about the shape. And people work the same way. The obsession has nothing to do with how kind they are, how well they treat you, whether they're good for your life, or whether they even want you back. It's about one thing only, how perfectly they fit the shape of the hook you've been carrying. That is why, and you may have lived this exact heartbreak, you can walk away from a genuinely good, steady, loving person and feel almost nothing, and then lie awake for months over someone who barely glanced in your direction. It was never a referendum on their worth or yours. The steady one simply didn't match the outline. The other one slid straight into it and turned. Once you see that clearly, you can stop asking, "What's wrong with me for wanting the wrong one?" Because it was never about worth. It was about shape. So the projection lands, the lock turns, and now something happens between the two of you. And this is the next thing we need to name, because it's the part that feels the most like love and is the easiest to mistake for it. Jung had his own analogy for it, and it's a good one. He said the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction at all, both are transformed. Picture two liquids poured into the same glass. Sometimes nothing happens. They just sit there in layers, separate. But sometimes they react. And once they do, you can never fully separate them again. They've become something new. When someone lives in your mind, that kind of reaction has taken place down at the chemical level of the psyche. Part of you has dissolved into part of them, the way sugar dissolves into water. And here's the thing about dissolved sugar. You can't pick it back out with your fingers. It's gone into the water. It's everywhere in it now. The old name for that state of dissolving is participation mystique, a merging so complete you genuinely can no longer feel where you end and the other person begins. Their mood becomes your weather. Their attention becomes the air you breathe. A single text can rearrange your entire nervous system for a day, because at this point there is no clean line between their inner state and yours. You've stopped being two separate glasses of water sitting side by side and become one cloudy mixture. And I want to be honest about why this is so hard to let go of. It feels like the deepest love you have ever known. That total dissolving of the boundary feels like union. But Jung would gently point out that it's closer to a kind of possession than to love, because real love needs two whole people standing on their own 2 feet, and this is one person dissolved into another. The two are dangerously easy to confuse, and almost everyone confuses them at least once. Now, so far I've been describing the bright version of this, the golden ideal, the luminous face on the screen. But Jung was never satisfied with only the pretty half of anything, and there's a darker version of being haunted that we have to look at directly. Because for a lot of people, it's the truer one. Sometimes the person who invades your mind isn't carrying your golden ideal at all. Sometimes they're carrying your shadow. The shadow, in Jung's language, is everything you've locked in the basement of yourself. All the parts you decided long ago were unacceptable and shoved out of sight. The selfishness you'd never allow yourself. The freedom you quietly envy. The boldness, the appetite, the raw anger you buried in order to stay likable and safe. Imagine you spent years carrying box after box of that material down into a basement and bolting the door. And then one day you turn a corner and see a stranger walking around in broad daylight, freely, shamelessly living out the exact things you locked away. It is magnetic and disturbing at the very same time. And now you know why. You're not really staring at a stranger. You're staring at the contents of your own basement, out in the open, wearing someone else's face. That's the secret behind one of the most confusing feelings a person can have: loathing someone and being unable to stop thinking about them at the same time. Obsession and resentment burning at the identical temperature. It feels contradictory, but it isn't. They're not holding your light. They're holding your darkness, and it grips you precisely because it's yours, and you've spent your whole life refusing to touch it. The bright projection and the dark projection work the same way. They just come from different rooms of the same house. At this point, a fair question is nagging at you, and it should be. This is all very poetic, but how do we actually know any of it is true? How do we know it isn't just a beautiful story we tell ourselves about heartbreak? And this is where Jung stops being a poet and becomes something closer to a scientist, because he proved the existence of these hidden complexes with a stopwatch. Early in his career, he ran an experiment that was almost mechanical in its simplicity. He'd read a person a long list of perfectly ordinary words, one at a time, and time exactly how long they took to respond to each. Most words got an instant, effortless answer. Table, sky, bread, gone in half a second. But every so often, on a word that looked completely harmless, the person would freeze, hesitate, stumble over their reply, blush, or blank out entirely. It worked like a metal detector swept slowly over a beach. Across most of the sand, the detector stays silent, sweep, nothing. But pass it over the one spot where something's buried, and it suddenly shrieks. Those little delays, those stumbles and blushes, were the shriek of the detector. They marked the exact buried spot where a complex was hidden beneath an innocent surface. Jung could literally measure, in fractions of a second, where a person's unconscious was holding its wounds, even when the person themselves had no idea the wound was there. So when he tells you a person can seize your mind because of something loaded in your own depths, understand that he is not guessing and he is not being poetic. He sat there with the stopwatch. He heard the detector go off again and again over the buried places. And here is what makes that discovery so unsettling once you take it seriously. If the complex is the buried thing and the person is only what happened to press on it, then it was probably never just this one person. Follow that logic honestly across your whole life, and a pattern rises to the surface that can genuinely take your breath away. Because the same figure tends to keep reappearing. Different faces, different names, different bodies, but the same charge, the same story, the same ending every time. The unavailable one, the one who almost chose you but didn't, the one you had to earn, had to chase, had to win. It's like a stage play that keeps running for years with a revolving cast. The lead actor changes every so often, new face, new voice, but the role never changes. Same character, same lines, same final scene where your heart breaks in precisely the same spot on the stage. Jung would say that's the complex casting fresh actors in an old part, staging the identical scene over and over, because it is trying, desperately, to get you to finally sit down and watch it. The unconscious does not give up and it does not get bored. If you won't listen to the whisper, it will send the same person back in a brand new costume and turn the volume up until you can't ignore it. Which raises the only question that actually matters now, the one everything so far has been building toward. If the same figure keeps arriving, if the obsession keeps returning, if the play keeps running, what is it trying to show you? Because it is trying to show you something. That's the turn, and it changes the meaning of everything that came before it. The person you can't stop thinking about is not an accident, not a punishment, and not a curse you've been handed by a cruel universe. They're a messenger. They are standing directly on top of something in you that is desperate for your attention, an unlived part of your life, a wound that never closed, a quality you adore in them precisely because you've refused to grow it in yourself. Jung said everything that irritates us about other people can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And the same is true. maybe even more true, of everything that obsesses us. That person is a mirror you never knew you were holding, tilted at the exact angle to show you the one part of yourself you've spent your whole life looking away from. So the work, finally, here is the work, is not to force them out of your head. And now the riptide comes back, exactly as I promised, because it holds the answer. You do not escape a riptide by fighting the current straight on. That's how people drown. You escape it by turning and swimming across it at an angle, calmly, until you slip free of its pull. The psychological version of swimming across is this. You stop fighting the obsession head on, and instead you turn sideways and get curious about it. You stop asking, how do I make this stop? And start asking what this person is carrying for you. What do they represent that has gone missing from your own life? What did they make you feel that you hadn't realized you were starving for? What quality burns so brightly in them? And where exactly have you refused to let that same quality live in yourself? You don't overpower the current. You change your angle to it. And little by little, it lets you go. When you can answer those questions honestly, without flinching away from them, something deep begins to loosen its grip. Jung called this withdrawing the projection. And now the projector image pays off too. Withdrawing the projection is simply the act of turning around in that dark theater. It's taking your eyes off the giant, luminous face on the screen and looking back for the first time at the small machine humming behind you, the one that's been throwing the entire image all along. And the moment you truly see it, you understand, with a strange ache of both grief and relief, that the light was always coming from you. The gold you saw in them was gold you had buried in yourself and forgotten you ever owned. And that realization is the doorway to the last idea, the one all of this has quietly been walking toward, what Jung called individuation. It's the lifelong work of becoming a whole person, and here's the picture that makes it real. Imagine someone who, across all the years of their life, handed out pieces of themselves to everyone they ever fell for. They left a piece of their heart with this one, their confidence with that one, their sense of adventure with another, their tenderness with someone long gone. And they've been walking around ever since, quietly incomplete, wondering why they never feel whole, because they never stopped to notice how much of themselves they'd given away. Individuation is going back around and gathering all of those pieces home. Every single projection you withdraw is one more fragment of your own soul walking back through the door and rejoining you. That's why this matters so much more than getting over one person. Getting over them is the small prize. Becoming whole is the real one. So the obsession, followed all the way down to the bottom, doesn't actually lead to them at all. It leads back to you, to the freedom you envied, the tenderness you wouldn't allow yourself, the boldness you locked in the basement, the whole version of your life you've been too afraid to actually live. Jung put it as plainly as anyone ever has. The one who looks outside is dreaming. The one who looks inside is finally awake. The person in your mind has kept you staring at the screen for a very long time. This whole thing, all of it, has only ever been an invitation to turn around and face the projector. The point was never to figure out what it all meant about the two of you. It was to follow the obsession like a thread, through the 2 a.m. loops, through the riptide, through the projection and the shadow, past the face you can't seem to forget, all the way down to the part of your own psyche that has been standing at a locked door this entire time, quietly asking you to open it. They were never really the story. They were the door. So the next time someone takes up residence in your mind and refuses to leave, don't just fight to evict them. Get curious instead about why that room was standing empty long enough for them to move into it in the first place. Because when you finally understand what they came to show you, really understand it in your body and not just in your head, the strangest and quietest thing happens. They begin to soften. Not because you loved them any less, but because you finally heard what they had been trying to say all along. And somewhere in the listening, you realized it had been your own voice the entire time. If this reached something in you, if there's a person in your head right now and you're already starting, even just slightly, to see them a little differently, subscribe. There's a lot more here worth sitting with, and I'm genuinely glad you're here for it.